Gigi here, and this is Let's Build. If this is your first time, I build a LEGO set time to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the LEGO Botanical Flowering Cactus versus Red Dead Redemption. All footage I am using is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. I apologize in advance for pronouncing names and or places incorrectly, and forgive my voice. This is week 3 with braces. Spoilers ahead, you've been warned. Specifications of the LEGO set. Delight young plant lovers with LEGO Botanicals Flowering Cactus building set for kids aged 9 and up. Packed with details, this lets girls and boys have fun creating cool cactus decor. Kids will feel their creativity flourish as they build 2 cacti models. The larger LEGO cactus is in full bloom and features a pink flower with a yellow center on top, while the smaller LEGO cactus features pink buds in various stages of growth. The cacti are an authentic shade of green and are both displayed in a pastel blue plant pot, making it easy for kids to show them off as a bedroom or home decor piece once they're finished building. A great gift for girls and boys on birthdays or other special occasions, as well as a gift for nature lovers of all ages. This LEGO Botanicals building set is available in the LEGO Builder app, where kids can zoom in and rotate their builds and track progress. This set contains 482 pieces. Set measures over 6.5 inches high, 4 inches wide, and 3.5 inches deep. The instruction booklet goes right into the build without any further information. From researching flowering cacti varieties, the variety that this LEGO set most closely resembles in both the flower and the body is the Echinocerius stramineus. Echinocerius stramineus is a species of cactus, with stramineus meaning made of straw. There are various common names such as strawberry cactus, porcupine hedgehog cactus, straw-color hedgehog, and pitaya. The straw-colored spines distinguish this particular plant from other Echinocerius. The aged spines may turn white in color and are very fragile. This cactus will be referred to as strawberry cactus from here on out. Description: strawberry cactus has various stems from which a sexual mature plant can have a number of stems from 10 to 50 to 100 to 350. The largest stem reported was 1 meter in diameter with up to 500 stems. The most unusual feature of this plant is the number of ribs per stem. Normally, it has 11 to 7 ribs per stem, and the average ribs per stem is 12, so it is easier to distinguish this from other cacti. In strawberry cactus, the areoles are circular in shape and normally 7 to 15 millimeters apart. Each areole contains 2 to 4 central spines and 7 to 10 radial spines, in which radial spines are acicular and 2 to 3 centimeters in length. Flowers and fruits. Strawberry cactus flowers in late March to May, and flowers are average of 8.5 to 12.5 centimeters in diameter and length. The inner tepals are deep red compared to the outer portion of the tepals. The filaments are 0.8 to 1 centimeter long and are reddish, and the anthers are yellow in color. Filament and anther are the male structures. The green stigma lobes are supported by reddish styles. There are also rare individuals reported by Big Bend National Park, where pure white flowers are found instead of the usual red. Fruits are globular in shape and 5 to 6 centimeters in diameter. The color will turn reddish-brown when ripe, and the areoles on the fruit can be easily removed. Distribution. Strawberry cactus is natively found in the United States and Mexico. It prefers a similar living environment to other cactus such as the desert, river, and higher mountains. There are certain specific areas in Mexico and the United States where these plants occur. Red Dead Redemption is a 2010 action-adventure game developed by Rockstar San Diego and published by Rockstar Games. A successor to 2004's Red Dead Revolver, it is the second game in the Red Dead series. Red Dead Redemption is set during the decline of the American frontier in the year 1911. It follows John Marston, a former outlaw who, after his wife and son are taken hostage by the government in ransom for his services as a hired gun, sets out to bring 3 members of his former gang to justice. The narrative explores themes of cycle of violence, masculinity, redemption, and the American dream. The game is played from a third-person perspective. The player can freely roam in its interactive open world, a fictionalized version of the western United States and northern Mexico, primarily by horseback and on foot. Gunfights emphasize gunslinger gameplay mechanic called Deadeye that allows players to mark multiple shooting targets on enemies in slow motion. The game uses a morality system by which the player's action affect their character's levels of honor, fame, and how other characters respond to the player. An online multiplayer mode is included in the original release, allowing up to 16 players to engage in both cooperative and competitive gameplay in a recreation of the single-player setting. The game's development lasted over 5 years, and it became one of the most expensive video games ever made. Rockstar improved its proprietary game engine to increase its technological capabilities. The development team conducted extensive research, including field trips to Washington, D.C., and analyzing classic Western films to achieve realism for the game. The team hired professional actors to perform the body movements through motion capture. Red Dead Redemption features an original score composed by Bill Elm and Woody Jackson. The game's development received controversy following accusation of unethical working practices. The studio's working hours and managerial style were met with public complaints from staff members. Red Dead Redemption was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 May 2010, for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 August 2023, and for Windows in October of 2024. For Android, iOS, Switch 2, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS in December of 2025. It received critical acclaim for its visuals, music, performances, gameplay, and narrative. It won year-end accolades, including Game of the Year awards from several gaming publications, and is considered one of the 7th-generation console gaming's most significant titles and among the greatest video game ever made. It has shipped over 25 million copies. Several downloadable content editions were released. Undead Nightmare added a new single-player campaign in which Marston searches for a cure to an infectious zombie plague. A prequel, Red Dead Redemption 2, was released in October of 2018. Gameplay. Red Dead Redemption is a Western-themed action-adventure game played from a third-person perspective. The player controls John Marston and completes missions, linear scenarios with set objectives, to progress through the story. In the epilogue, they control John's son, Jack. Outside of missions, the player may freely roam the open world, consisting of the American states New Austin and West Elizabeth, fictionalized versions of the western United States, and the fictional Mexican state of Nuevo Paraiso. Different breeds of horses are the main forms of transportation, each with different attributes. Horses must be tamed in the wild, stolen, or purchased. The player can utilize trains and carriages for quick travel. Undeveloped land features rugged and vast landscapes with occasional travelers, bandits, and wildlife. Urban settlements range from isolated farmhouses to crowded towns. The player can witness and partake in random events, including public hangings, ambushes, pleas for assistance, encounters with strangers, ride-by shootings, and dangerous animal attacks. Optional side activities include dueling, bounty hunting, herb collecting, gambling, and hunting. Red Dead Redemption uses an honor system which is increased by morally positive deeds, such as capturing an outlaw alive or saving a stranger, and decreased by negative choices like murder. The fame system affects how non-player characters or NPCs react to the player based on honor. If the player has high honor, NPCs will greet them and they will receive discounts in some of the stores. If low, the NPCs will act insecure and establishments may close their doors. The player can disguise by wearing a bandana when performing criminal acts. Gunfights are an essential gameplay mechanic. The player can take cover, target a specific animal or person, blind fire, and free aim. Individual body parts can be targeted to take down targets non-lethally. Weapons include revolvers, pistols, rifles, shotguns, knives, explosives, and lassos. Aiming utilizes a gunslinger gameplay mechanic known as Deadeye, a targeting system allowing the player to slow down time and mark targets. Once the targeting sequence ends, the player fires to all marked locations in quick succession. The Deadeye system upgrades and grants more abilities as the player progresses. The game introduces the bounty system, a crime governing mechanic inspired by Grand Theft Auto's wanted system. When the player commits a crime, witnesses run to the nearest police station. The player can bribe or kill them before they reach the station, negating those consequences. Once the law is alerted, the wanted meter appears with a bounty set on the player's head. The bounty grows higher as the player commits more crimes, and more lawmen will be sent to hunt them down. After committing enough crime, the U.S. Marshals or Mexican Army will be sent. To evade law enforcement in pursuit, the player must escape a circular zone or kill all the lawmen in a town. If the player escapes, bounty hunters will continue to track them. The bounty will remain on their head until they pay it at a telegraph station or present a pardon letter. The online multiplayer allows up to 16 players to engage in competitive and cooperative gameplay in a recreation of the single-player setting. Each game begins with a Mexican standoff, which the survivors move to any part of the battlefield in preparation for respawning enemies. Event types include deathmatch scenarios and capture the flag variants. Crates contain extra weapons, ammo, and other power-ups. Players can level up and complete weapon challenges to earn rewards such as new character models, golden weapon skins, new titles, and new breeds of animal mounts. Multiplayer features open-world gameplay, wherein players can form or join a group of up to 8 players in a posse group, and partake in hunting or attacking other gangs or posses. In some game modes, players are unable to kill each other. Plot: in 1911, former outlaw John Marston is forced by Bureau of Investigation agents Edgar Ross and Archer Fordham to hunt down his former gang members in exchange for his family's return. John first pursues former ally Bill Williamson, who now leads his own gang that terrorizes New Austin. He arrives at Williamson's stronghold at Fort Mercer, but ends up getting shot and left for dead after unsuccessfully persuading him to surrender. Rescued and nursed back to health by local rancher Bonnie McFarlane, he helps her with several jobs around her farm in return, while formulating a plan to attack the Williamsons' gang. John makes many allies to help him carry out the attack, including U.S. Marshal Lee Johnson, con artist Nigel West Dickens, grave robber and treasure hunter Seth Briers, and an alcoholic arms smuggler known as Irish. Ultimately, John and his allies storm Fort Mercer and kill all of Williamson's men, but learned that Williamson himself has fled to Mexico to seek help from another former gang member, Javier Escuela. John parts ways with his allies and travels to Mexico with Irish's help. Upon his arrival in Nuevo Paraíso, John meets legendary gunslinger Landon Ricketts, who helps him improve his shooting skills. He becomes involved in a local civil war between Colonel Augustine Allende, the state's tyrannical governor, and Abraham Reyes, the leader of a rebellion against Allende's government. John works with both sides in exchange for help in tracking down his targets. When Allende turns on him, John is rescued by Reyes and vows to aid the rebels in exchange for Reyes's help in finding Williamson and Escuela. During a raid on a Mexican army fortress, the rebels help him find the latter, who reveals that Williamson is under Allende's protection. John can then choose to either turn Escuela over to Ross and Fordham, or kill him and give them his body. Reyes eventually leads an assault on Allende's palace, and John helps him chase and execute Allende and Williamson when they attempt to flee, leaving Reyes to rule Nuevo Paraíso and lead his revolution to Mexico's capital. John returns to the United States. In Blackwater, Ross and Fordham coerce John into helping them track down Dutch Vanderland, a charismatic anarchist and John's former gang leader and mentor. Dutch has recently formed a gang with disaffected Native Americans, with whom he shares a hatred for the government and modernization. Aided by Ross's associates, John finds Dutch's stronghold in the mountains. After helping Ross and Fordham thwart Dutch's robbery of the Blackwater Bank, John partakes in the U.S. Army's assault on the stronghold. Chased to a cliff, Dutch concedes defeat, warns John that the government will not give him peace, and dies by taking care of it himself. Afterward, Ross honors their agreement and releases John's family. Returning to his ranch, John reunites with his wife Abigail, son Jack, and former gang member and close friend Uncle to attempt an honest life again. However, this peace is short-lived as Ross betrays John and leads a U.S. Army unit in an attack on his ranch. John tries to fend them off, but the attacking force is too large, and Uncle is killed. John helps his family escape and stays to face the attackers, who kill him and leave. Upon hearing the gunshots, Abigail and Jack return to the ranch, mourn John, and bury him. In 1914, Jack buries Abigail next to John after she dies, before tracking down a now retired Ross to confront him about John's death. Jack kills Ross in a duel and walks away. Themes and analysis. Red Dead Redemption explores themes of the cycle of violence, faith, governmental control, law and order, the loss of innocence and freedom, manifest destiny, masculinity, social change, redemption, and is noted for its representation of Native Americans and violence. IGN's Eric Brudvig considered the game a commentary on modern political issues such as racism and immigration. Writer Dan Hauser said the story was not intended as a satire of contemporary America, but parallels were inevitable due to the similarities of the time period. Some scholars identified the game conforms to a neoliberal value, particularly in its depoliticizing of the sufferers of corporate greed, though others felt it ridicules the selfishness of the neoliberals. Matt Margini described the narrative as a tragedy, citing Aristotle's proposal that the hero is neither good nor evil and tragic heroes are tragic because they bring out their own fall, despite having good intentions. Several scholars noted that, despite the use of the word redemption in the title, such a feat was impossible for John. Reed McCarter of Bullet Points Monthly described the word as bitterly ironic, due to the inability of reinvention for both the characters and the country. Margini wrote the final chapter allowed the player to feel they achieved the promised redemption, only for it to be taken away by the story's end. Conversely, Kotaku's Heather Alexandra felt John achieved his redemption upon sacrificing himself to save his family. Benjamin J. Triana found that while John's death implies transcendence, it is not overtly sacrificial, nor does it represent John as a hero. Gama Sutra's Richard Clark considered the depiction of redemption cynical and overly simple. Red Dead Redemption explores the impacts of the cycle of violence, most notably represented through Jack's continuation of his father's failures by adopting the outlaw status. NPR's Jason Sheehan considered the game a tale of the senselessness of violence used to solve violence, which begets only more violence. M. Melissa Elston found, like other modern media, it attempts to reframe the violence and simplistic moral dualism of previous pop culture representations of the Old West. The game drew some commentary for its depiction of violence. Margini considered it justifiable since violence means something, and Timothy J. Walsh added that it is just a game, but recognized the worrisome nihilism could perpetuate if generalized. Conversely, Christopher Bartle expressed hesitancy at the moral justification of virtual murder and noted even hardcore gamers might balk at virtual sadism. The game presents the ethos of the American dream in its formation, in contrast with the modern-day representation in Grand Theft Auto 4 from 2008. While John's violent past rendered him unable to achieve his redemption, it also impacts his son's ability to achieve the American dream as he chooses to become an outlaw like his father. The game features commentary on both freedom and control, and the manner in which societal change acts as a catalyst for losing one's control and compromising their morality. The journey from the open fields to the city of Blackwater represents civilization's control over the natural world, though the player lacks control during the opening sequence in which John leaves Blackwater, only gaining it when re-entering the city later in the game. Nick Robinson felt John's horse reflected his freedom and comfortability, while traveling with the government agents via car represented him as literally and figuratively trapped by technology. While Red Dead Redemption grants the player freedom, they ultimately lack control over the narrative, as being free to do things is not the same as being able to change things, an ideology reflected in John's inability to prevent his own death. Triana felt the ending allowed the player to properly understand John's rejection of a developing society due to the misery endured from the government. The game demonstrates the disparities of economic inequality. Sarah Humphreys identified a connection between McFarlane's ranch and the class conflict of Johnson County, Wyoming in the late 19th century. Presented in marketing materials as a traditional cowboy, isolated and violent, a white, heteronormative, rugged individual, John's behavior and ambitions in the narrative are generally unconventional. His ambiguity and internal conflict lead him to exhibit wariness more than manliness. Regardless, he occasionally perpetuates stereotypes, and he continues to preserve lives and missions for the government despite his bitter opposition to them, described as an enactment of Theodore Roosevelt's masculine ideals. Triana considered the game's masculinity plural, with the male lead generally pitted against other men, though recognized the dominance of the characters shifted throughout the narrative. He found John's challenges reflected those of straight, cisgender men in the modern era. Margini blamed John's downfall on the false promises of a world built on hypermasculine ideals, emphasized by his unsuccessful attempts to adopt a new form of masculinity and play an empathetic father to Jack, while Robinson deemed John a victim of government agents who force him into violence, yet ultimately destroy him. Wider screens, Juho Tuminen and Ali Satoma describe John as an idealist and Jack as the educated youth, a version of a new kind of woke man. Female representation is mixed. Bonnie is presented as insightful and resourceful, instead of simply a woman masquerading as a male figure, though still defers to a simple domestic tasks in her father's presence, and on one occasion becomes a damsel in distress. Meanwhile, Abigail is presented as the good prostitute who serves as a handmaiden and later becomes the nagging wife, and other female characters exist simply to reflect back onto John, both positively and negatively. In further opposition to the American dream, the game's representation of Native Americans is bleak, cruel, and violent. Jody Bird believes Red Dead signaled the Native American genocide. Bullet Points McCarter felt that while the killing of Native Americans is explained in the context of the story, it is a shaky rationale meant to echo the rhetoric surrounding the genocide and forced relocations. Elston recognized the Native American character Nastas as an example of Gerald Visner's manifest manners, a falsification of the indigenous experience being told as truth. Dr. Esther Wright proposed Native American characters were only included to justify and complement the white characters' otherness, as oppositional to the government and civilization, describing it as disingenuous oversimplification and misuse of the complexities of the Native American genocide. She opined that while John is not overtly racist, his participation in an attack on an Indian reservation implicates him on a microscale recreation of racist, genocidal violence. Margini considered the representation could be either an example of dark satire or a crafty way of excusing their genocide at Marston's hand, aligned with a wider erasure seen in other Western media. Triana found Native Americans end up victims to the game's evil social forces due to John's priority of reuniting with his family. Development. Rockstar Games acquired Red Dead Revolver from Capcom in 2003, years after development, and published the game within 9 months. After its May 2004 release, Rockstar wanted to create its own Western video game from scratch. Early development began in 2005 and full development commenced in 2006, following the formation of a core development team. Rockstar San Diego's 180-person team co-opted Rockstar's Leeds, New England, North, and Toronto studios to facilitate development between a full team of over 1,000. Having exhausted the use of previous hardware on other projects, Rockstar felt inspired after realizing the potential power of the PS3 and Xbox 360. Analyst estimations place the combined development and marketing budget between $80 million and $100 million, which would make it one of the most expensive video games to develop. Development received controversy following accusations of unethical working practices at Rockstar San Diego, including 12-hour workdays and 6-day weeks, with a lower than the industry average salary increase. Red Dead Redemption's 105,000-page script was written in 2 years. Taking inspiration from films like The Wild Bunch, High Plains Drifter, Unforgiven, and The Proposition, the team felt most Western fiction takes place between 1840 and 1880, with Red Dead Redemption's 1911 setting allowing more of an intriguing analysis of the transformation from the Old West into the modern world. The team wanted the depiction of violence to feel slightly raw and unpleasant, attempting realism without exaggeration. The open world was created to represent iconic features of the American frontier. The game organized field trips to Washington, D.C., visiting the Library of Congress and the National Archives building, captured a multitude of photographs, and analyzed various classic Western films, television shows, and novels. They considered the open world's creation one of the most technically demanding aspects of production in terms of filling the world with enough content to interest the player. Like other projects since Rockstar Games presents Table Tennis in 2006, the game uses a proprietary Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, or RAGE, to perform animation and render tasks, and the Euphoria and Bullet engines for further animation and environment rendering tasks. Overhauling the potential process power of Rage allowed the game to create a high level of detail, including realistic animations and detailed textures. The potential power of the PS3 and Xbox 360 experienced through development kits motivated the team to begin development and to create a game that could fully render the countryside, which was difficult to achieve on previous hardware. The developers at San Diego sought guidance from other Rockstar studios experienced with developing open worlds, particularly Grand Theft Auto developer Rockstar North. The game was envisioned to improve the core mechanics of Red Dead Revolver by scaling it up to the standard of the other Rockstar games, maintaining key gameplay elements like Deadeye and dueling mechanics, but majorly overhauling the experience otherwise. In particular, the team faced a challenge in creating realistic movement for the horse, resulting in the engagement of a stunt horse to simulate movement for the designers. As the story developed, a range of characters were organically created based on the period. Red Dead Redemption features around 450 characters. It requires a large amount of character dialogue in order to feel alive. Comparable to Rockstar's previous game, Grand Theft Auto 4, researchers at Rockstar developed a style guide based on real sayings at the time period. Rockstar hired Rod Edge as the full-time director to handle actors' performances, recorded using motion capture technology in Santa Monica, California, with additional dialogue and sound effects recorded in a studio. After an audition process, Rob Wheatolf was selected to portray John Marston. John was developed to be a family man, with nuance as opposed to an explicit villain or hero. Steve J. Palmer, who portrayed Bill Williamson, felt that John and Bill represented siblings in their former game, while Dutch Vanderlinde was more of a parental figure. Benjamin Byrus Davis, who portrayed Dutch, was told that Dutch was well-read, charismatic former gang leader who had just lost his mind. Red Dead Redemption is one of Rockstar's first games to use an original score. Music supervisor Ivan Pavlovich cited the large scale of the game as one of the largest difficulties when producing the score. To achieve an effective gaming experience, the game could not solely feature licensed music, like previous Rockstar games. In 2018, Rockstar engaged musicians Bill Elm and Woody Jackson, who collaborated to compose approximately 200 tracks for the game over 15 months. The original score and subsequent album were both recorded and mixed at Jackson's studio. When researching for music for the inspiration, Jackson found that there was no Western sound in 1911. He felt that the soundtracks of the 1960s Western films, such as Ennio Morricone's work on the Dollars trilogy, was more representative of Western music. Rockstar also consulted musicians who played traditional Western instruments, such as harmonica by player Tommy Morgan. The game also features vocal performances by Ashtar Command, Jose Gonzalez, Jamie Lytle, William Elliott Whitmore. Legacy? Critics concurred that Red Dead Redemption was among the best games of the seventh generation of video game consoles. Eurogamer's Dan Whitehead hoped the eighth generation of consoles would offer similarly powerful experiences. In September of 2013, IGN ranked Red Dead Redemption the fifth best PlayStation 3 and seventh best Xbox 360 game. In 2015, Games Radar ranked it sixth on its list of best games, recognizing its superiority in narrative over Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto V from 2013. And US Gamer ranked it 10th on its list of best 21st century games. Jazz Regnall called it one of the finest open-world games so far seen. Games Radar Plus named it the fourth best game of the decade in 2019, comparing it favorably to other sandbox games, Grand Theft Auto V and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Red Dead Redemption ranked high on several best games lists determined by the public. It featured 7th on Good Games' Top 100 Games list, and 5th on IGN's Games of the Generation list, as voted on by the program and website's respective audiences. A prequel, Red Dead Redemption 2, was released in October 2018. Since I now live in a desert climate, I wanted to have a cactus in my home, but since I have two high-energy dogs, having the real plant posed too much of a risk. So this LEGO set is the next best thing. I chose to play Red Dead Redemption because its story takes place in the American Southwest and northern Mexico, which is the native habitat for the strawberry cactus. There are a variety of cacti to check out during free roaming sections of the game, and you can spend as much time as you want exploring the desert. Total build time, 48 minutes, 3 seconds. Which means you could watch the 1986 educational film Saguaro, Sentinel of the Desert, at 56 minutes, and still have time left over. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.